One of them's at beer on tap. Good morning, and welcome to the January the 12th, 2020 meeting of the Select Committee on Redistricting. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Representatives Camper, Crawford, Faison, Freeman, Hazelwood, Hicks, Holsclaw, Lambert, Parkinson, Russell, Vaughn, Whitson, Williams, Wendell, Vice Chairman Marsh,
Here.
Chairman Johnson.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you. This meeting marks the culmination of this committee's work on the 2020 redistricting process. In September, we heard about the 2020 census and the resulting demographic shifts within our state. We adopted guidelines for the redistricting plan for the Tennessee House of Representatives. We adopted guidelines for the submission of outside redistricting plans, and we heard directly from Tennessee citizens and citizens organizations about redistricting and the redistricting process. In October, we met again to hear the diverse perspective of Tennessee citizens regarding redistricting. In December, we heard presentations from citizens and members on the plan proposals for the Tennessee House of Representatives, and we recommended a plan for the Tennessee House of Representatives. And today, we will hear from Tennesseans who have submitted plans to this committee and from members of this committee who have developed plans for the Tennessee Senate and the U.S. House of Representatives. As I said in our December meeting, despite the unprecedented delay in the delivery of the census data, this committee has worked diligently and timely to produce a fair and constitutional redistricting plan. I would like to thank each member of this committee for your dedication and participation in this process. And with that, I would like to ask Mr. Himes to assist us with the presentation of redistricting plans today. Mr. Himes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members of the committee, I'm Doug Himes. I'm your House Ethics Counsel, and I'm also the counsel to the Select Committee on Redistricting. We had several outside plans for both the Senate and for Congress submitted, and I will go through those on the agenda. All the folks were given an opportunity to let me know whether or not they wanted to be here today. We heard back from several we did not hear back from. I'll note that one of the people submitted an email statement a little bit later than they were supposed to let me know, but I sent that to you last night. I'm not going to read it here today. With that, the agenda item number 3 was the redistricting plans for the Tennessee Senate. There was one public plan submission by Mr. Brett Windrow. As I mentioned, he submitted an email statement which was sent to you, and that was late submitted, but you have that. Member plans, it's my understanding that there's no member plans at this time, which would bring us to the committee plan. And I believe, Mr. Speaker, that's you at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Himes. I will turn the gavel over to Speaker Pro Tem Marsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to recognize you for the committee Senate plan.
Thank you, Speaker Pro Tem Marsh. House Bill 1037 is the vehicle for the Senate redistricting concept. Traditionally, this concept is the work product of the Senate Redistricting Committee. It is my understanding that minor modifications are being finalized in the Senate, and I anticipate that the Senate redistricting concept will be available in the near future. It's my intention to ask the Public Service Subcommittee to move House Bill 1037 as introduced to the full committee where the concept will be presented. Thank you, Mr. Speaker Pro Tem.
Thank you. Pass the gavel back to you, sir.
Item number 4 is the redistricting plan for Congress. Mr. Himes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We had public plans submitted for Congress, and of those we had 7. 3 of the submitters are, I believe, are here with us today. I will just run through the submissions that we received no response for, and one that we received a later response, and you were sent an email. Kristen Stewart, Will Bowen, and Nathan Lefkowitz submitted plans. And again, all the evaluations for these plans are on the web page of the committee, and they have been on the web page for the committee. That you'll hear 2 additional plans today. One from the Democratic caucus and one, I think one from Representative Freeman, one from Representative Marsh. Those evaluations should be on your dashboard. They're also on the webpage of the committee listed as additional evaluations. With that, the public plans, Kristen Stewart, Will Bowen, Nathan Lefkowitz did not respond. Will Bowen did, but it was the late email response, which I forwarded to the members of the committee, which brings us to Congressman Cooper. My understanding that Mr. Robert Davidson is here on Congressman Cooper's behalf, and I will put Congressman Cooper's submission onto the screen. Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Ms. Himes. Is Mr. Davidson here?
Mr. Speaker, I think they're just running a little bit late. So, with your permission, if we could move that to the end of the public submission plans, and we can move on to the League of Women Voters, Civic Tennessee, and the Tennessee Conference of the NAACP submitted a plan to the committee. I'm going to bring it up onto the screen. I believe possibly that Representative Dixie is here, and then Miss Debbie Gold, who it represents the League of Women Voters.
Thank you, Ms. Himes. Is Chairman Dixie and Ms. Gold, if you could come forward. I don't see Chairman Dixie. Ms. Gold, please proceed.
Long believed that the public needs to be directly involved in the redistricting process. And while we congratulate Chairman Johnson on allowing public comment in the meetings that have been held so far, we did not think that was sufficient. And therefore, we partnered with Civic Tennessee and NAACP of Tennessee to hold 3 redistricting hearings. And we listened to what people said in those areas and drew a congressional map based on what we heard. And what we heard was that people wanted their communities having unified representation in Congress. And therefore, we drew a map that reflects those priorities. So you'll note that, for example, that Davidson County, Bradley County, Hamilton, and Murray, and Montgomery County were kept whole in our maps, and that really reflected what we heard. We also heard that there were areas where there was a community of interest that had not been unified in the past 2010 maps, and those areas wanted their community of interest represented. So that was why we drew a map that connected Knoxville and Oak Ridge because of their economic links. They felt very strongly they wanted to return to what had once been a unified congressional district that reflected those interests. And we also heard from Sevier and Blount County residents that they felt that their interest in what happens around the Smokies meant that they wanted to have unified representation. So, Chairman Johnson and committee, we hope that you will take these issues into consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Himes?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Next on the list would be Civic Tennessee. They submitted a plan through Leader Camper, and I believe Miss Mattia Powell is here to talk about that plan.
Ms. Powell, if you would come forward. And Leader Camper, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and members. Let me just first thank Civic Tennessee for your hard work, for your interest in the redistricting process, for being here to make sure that the voices of Tennessee are heard. I know you guys put a lot of work into it, and we really appreciate you being here. I look forward to hearing your presentation.
Thank you so much, and I really appreciate you giving me an opportunity to share what we've done so far. Is that better? Okay, I just need to scoot up. I got this mask on, and it is definitely close to my face.
Ms. Powell, for the record, would you identify yourself and who you're with, please?
Absolutely. My name is Mattia Powell, and I am the Executive Director for Civic Tennessee. Is that what you need?
That's it.
Great, thank you. And as Ms. Gold just said, we did work really closely with the league and as well as other civic organizations across Tennessee to hold hearings to understand what people wanted out of this process. I think there needed to be a lot of education. People didn't really understand what redistricting was, so we tried to provide that perspective as well as get their feedback on what they wanted out of, maps. And so very similar to what you just heard, we heard that people wanted to keep their communities whole. I mean, over and over and over again, we heard that in Maury County, we heard that in Davidson County, and so this map reflects that. And we tried to split as few counties as possible. I know that there was definitely also concern about urban and rural. There were rural communities that felt like they didn't want urban representation, and urban communities that felt like they did not want to be represented or connected to rural communities because they felt like their interests were different. And sometimes that was impossible to do, but we tried to do what we heard through the map process. And I will just say this, I think it is really important that folks feel like that their communities are being heard. That was over and over and over again, we heard that. So when I heard that there's a potential that Davidson County might not be whole, it is the disregard to what we heard through this process. People really wanted their communities to be whole. They wanted to be able to choose their candidate of choice. And I feel like that this is what that map reflects, and trying not to split as few counties as possible.
Thank you, Ms. Powell. I think Mr. Davidson is here. Mr. Davidson, if you would come forward, please. Please identify yourself and who you're with.
I'm Robert A. Davidson, an old retired CPA from Shelbyville, Tennessee, but I live here in Nashville. I've worked and lived here for 45 years, but I grew up with Jim Cooper in Shelbyville, and I share roots with the Mr. Chairman there, going all the way back to Petersburg, Tennessee. Our families share that large city in our family heritage. Well, thank you, members of the Select Committee. It's an honor to speak with you today. It really is. As you know, Jim is the only member of the congressional delegation, I believe, who has accepted your invitations to appear. Unfortunately, COVID sidelined him today, so I'm his sit-in. He's vaccinated and seems to be doing well, so he'll be fine. I've been Jim's treasurer for practically all of his campaigns and his CPA. I know how strongly he feels about keeping Nashville whole, and I know how strongly Nashvillians feel about it. I think they want a consolidated local government in D.C. like any city of this size would. If news accounts are true, then many legislators have already decided unexplainably to split this city into 2, 3, or maybe 4 districts. If these stories are correct, the pizza pie redistricting of Nashville would be an obvious political gerrymander that would hurt 40% of Tennesseans, 65% of Nashvillians. Now, I'm an accountant, it's kind of a math joke, but 40% of Tennesseans with only one member of the House delegation left is 11%. And that's certainly not what the Constitution intended, and that's not right, and I think we know that. Let's be truthful to Tennessee voters. Splitting Nashville is the intent is to water down the Democratic delegation. Doing something that is not right simply because you can is wrong. No better proof of Nashville's success than the Republican and Democratic national conventions are considering this island of blue to have their conventions here. I just left a bipartisan committee which I serve on. Governor Haslam and Senator Frist and other Democrat and Republican leaders were there, and what an honor for Nashville to be considered for that. Why hurt a city that's that powerful and strong on the national scale and has a chance of hosting conventions of such stature? I've always loved history. I know you guys have too, and particularly Tennessee history. Those of you on the committee that know me know that I've always worked with both sides of the House, as Jim has, and we've always been a state that put people over politics. You guys need to do that here. Splitting Nashville would be wrong. Thank you. And let's keep Petersburg whole, too. Okay, let's put that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Davidson. Mr. Himes?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. That completes the publicly submitted plans and the presentations and brings us to member submitted plans, and I believe Representative Freeman has one.
Representative Freeman, you're recognized.
Thank you very much. Let you get a chance to pull it up. So the Democratic proposal for the Tennessee 9 congressional districts reimagines our maps to better represent each region of the state. The biggest change is a new congressional district in Middle Tennessee's fast-growing suburban counties. This move reflects population trends and better aligns communities with shared interests like transportation, infrastructure, and affordable housing. Overall, these districts closely follow Tennessee's 3 grand divisions. District 1, which groups together the counties that have historically been referred to as Upper East Tennessee. District 2, which includes Anderson County, Oak Ridge, Sevier, the Great Smoky Mountains National Park, the city of Maryville, Alcoa. District 3, which includes counties in the southeastern portion of the state. The 4 districts in Middle Tennessee, or District 4, which groups together large, fast-growing suburban communities. District 5, which consists of Nashville, Laverne, parts of Smyrna. District 6, which includes many of the rural counties of the Cumberland Plateau. And District 7, which groups together the rural communities east of the Tennessee River. There are 2 districts in West Tennessee. District 8, which basically every rural county in West Tennessee along with parts of Shelby. And District 9, which groups together the cities of Memphis and Bartlett. This map meets the constitutional requirement of 1 person, 1 vote. Under this map, the average congressional district is within 0% of the target population. The maximum deviation under the target population is 6 people on the maximum and 7 on the target population maximum deviation. Only 8 counties were split, which is less than what we have today, and no counties were split more than once. The counties that were split are Bedford, Blount, Hardin, Murray, Roane, Rutherford, Sumner, Union, and Shelby, and all of those required a split because of population growth. There's 1 minority-majority district. This district is where a single minority group represents more than 50% of the voting population. The 9th congressional district in Shelby County was a majority black district in the previous map and continues to be under this updated version. There's also 1 opportunity district, also called an influence district. An opportunity district is one where non-white voters or a coalition of minority groups represent less than 50% of the voting population, but more than 35%. Under this map, minority groups represent 42% of the voting age population in the 5th Congressional District, based in Davidson County and Northwest Rutherford County. It's important to note that the Voting Rights Act does not require states to create new influence districts, but the United States Supreme Court continues to recognize that creating and maintaining such districts is part of how states comply with the Voting Rights Act. In states like Tennessee, where minority groups represent 1 out of every 4 residents and voters in the state, the presence of an influence district is an accurate reflection of our state. As we were drawing these maps, we tried to keep cities and communities whole, as we've heard some of the other folks tried to as well. As the Tennessee Constitution calls for, we drew lines using geography, political subdivisions, such as cities, towns, as much as possible, with the goal of keeping more communities whole. Wherever a city or town is wholly within a county, that city has been kept whole, with only one exception. This map also reunites several towns and communities, the cities of Columbia, Memphis, back into a single district. We considered public comments from Tennesseans as we were going through this map. We held multiple statewide meetings in the 3 grand divisions. We heard from hundreds of voters and Tennesseans across the state, and we adjusted our map accordingly. We also asked our members to hold unofficial meetings and official meetings to get the public feedback. And then talking about compactness, using the REOC and the Polsby-Popper metrics to measure compactness, our districts are considerably more compact than the 2011 districts were. This map scores 17% better on the REOC and 47% better on the Polsby-Popper than the existing map. The intent was, whether you live in a rural community, suburb, or downtown, this proposal represents an opportunity to better align communities across the state with neighbors who share many of the same policy concerns. And with that, I would like to ask for the support of the committee for my map.
Thank you, Representative Freeman. Next, we have the committee plan. Speaker Pro Tem Marsh, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On behalf of the committee officers and coordinators, today I'm presenting a redistricting plan for the United States House of Representatives. This concept complies with all state and federal constitutional and statutory requirements. This concept creates 9 districts, including 1 majority-minority district. Each district is equal in population, 767,871, with the exception of the 6th district, which has a population of 767,872, just 1 person. 9 counties are split: Shelby, Benton, Davidson, Williamson, Wilson, Ray, Scott, Campbell, and Hancock. No incumbents are paired, and each district is contiguous. At this time, Mr. Chairman, I would ask the committee's attorney, Doug Himes, to go over the concept generally and district by district.
Mr. Himes, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm going to adjust this map so I can get up on the screen. Mr. Speaker, members, I'm going to go over the map district by district, but I just wanted to start off by saying the same population and demographic shifts that affected this committee when you redrew your state house districts are at play in the congressional districts as well. We started with the 9th and 8th districts. The 9th district was 77,122 people down in population. The 8th was 51,524 down, a combined negative of 128,646. And the same issue in East Tennessee, but to a lesser extent. The 1st, 2nd, and 3rd districts had a combined negative population where they had to get to the ideal of 64,431. So beginning and drawing in those two areas of the state, the confluence where everything came together is Middle Tennessee. So you have the 2 West Tennessee districts, the 3 East Tennessee districts, and the 4 Middle Tennessee districts where the population was balanced. And with that said, I'll just go over district by district of the district, the incumbent that's in that district, and the counties and partial counties that are in each of those districts. So in the 1st district, Representative Harshberger is all of Johnson, Carter, Unicoi, Washington, Sullivan, Greene, Hawkins, Koch, Sevier, Jefferson, Hamblin, and a part of Hancock. Moving to the west, the 2nd district, Representative Burchett, all of Campbell, Claiborne, Unicoi, Granger, Knox, Loudon, Blunt, and part of Hancock. 3rd district, Representative Fleischman, all of Morgan, Anderson, Roane, Monroe, McMinn, Polk, Bradley, Hamilton, part of Scott, part of Campbell. 4th district, Representative Desjardins, all of Lawrence, Giles, Lincoln, Franklin, Marion, Miggs, Ray, Bledsoe, Sequatchie, Grundy, Warren, Coffee, Moore, Bedford, and Rutherford. And I'll correct myself. Ray has a small split, very small split. 5th district, Representative Cooper is all of Lewis, all of Murray, all of Marshall, part of Williamson, part of Davidson, part of Wilson. 6th district, Representative Rose, all of Scott, all of Fentress, all of Cumberland, part of Ray, all of Van Buren, White, Putnam, Overton, Pickett, Clay, Jackson, DeKalb, Cannon, Smith, Macon, Trousdale, Sumner, part of Wilson, part of Davidson. The 7th district, Congressman Green, all of Stewart, all of Montgomery, all of Robertson, part of Benton, all of Humphreys, all of Houston, all of Dixon, all of Cheatham, part of Davidson, part of Williamson, Hickman, Perry, Decatur, and Wayne. The 8th Congressional District, Representative Kustov, is all of Lake, all of Obion, all of Weakley, all of Henry, all of Dyer, all of Gibson, all of Carroll, part of Benton, all of Lauderdale, all of Crockett, Haywood, Madison, Henderson, Chester, Hardin, McNary, Hardeman, Fayette, and part of Shelby. And finally, the 9th District, Congressman Cohen, part of Shelby, all of Tipton. Mr. Speaker, that is the congressional plan.
Thank you, Ms. Times. Speaker Pro Tem Marsh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion that the committee vote to approve this concept as the committee's recommended plan for the United States House of Representatives.
I have a motion. And a second. Representative Freeman, you're recognized.
Will we be able to ask some questions about the map before we vote on this?
Sure.
Can I ask a question, please, sir? Thank you.
Representative Freeman, you're recognized.
Thank you, sir. Couple questions going back to what is, you made a statement that as you were creating the east and western divisions that you moved towards the center of the state, and it left you no other option other than to split Davidson County as you reflect here. maybe you didn't say that, or that was a reason that Davidson County was split because you were working towards Middle Tennessee. And we presented a plan that showed an alternative, and was there ever an alternative plan that reflected not separating Davidson County?
Representative Freeman, who are you directing the question to?
I'm sorry, to Doug, Mr. Himes, sorry.
Mr. Himes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Representative Freeman, I'm not sure that I didn't say, I don't think I just said that where the population was balanced was Middle Tennessee. And that's what I said. And it's, as far as plans that kept Davidson County whole, I will just point out, like you pointed out, you have one.
Representative Freeman.
And did you speak to the minority makeup of the new 5th, 7th, and what is that, 6th district?
I did not. Speaker Marsh just mentioned the 9th district as a majority-minority district. I can speak on those, and I'd also say that, I'll speak on that. So which districts would you like to?
The ones that split the 5th.
Okay, so split Davidson County.
Correct.
Okay. The 5th district, population is 767,871. The voting age white is 73.24. The voting age African American is 11.76, and voting age Hispanic is 8.77. The 6th district population is 767,872. It's the district with the extra person. Voting age white 81.18. Voting age African American 8.64, and voting age Hispanic is 6.37. And the 7th district, 767,871. Voting age white 73.37. Voting age African American is 15.53, and voting age Hispanic is 6.21. And I don't have the on the sheet that in front of me. I have it upstairs. I don't is the Asian population voting age for that.
Representative Freeman.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Himes. I spoke a bit about it when we were presenting the House plan as well, and I just want to repeat this, that while the Voting Rights Act talks a bit about majority-minority districts, it doesn't address specifically the opportunity districts, and but subsequent cases before the Supreme Court has directed states to look at opportunity districts and the voice, or the voting voice, I guess, of minority groups to also be reflected in that process. And it pains me to say this, but I have great issue with the dilution of minority voters, specifically within Davidson County, under this plan, and would really encourage the committee to look long and hard at that as it relates to specifically our compliance within the Voting Rights Act. And with that, that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Freeman. Representative Parkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was a little, I'm sorry, and I apologize, but I was a little confused about, and this may be more parliamentary than anything, I was a little confused about the process of the committee, as we were hearing these different plans, had I known that we were able to make a motion on some of these plans, because only one motion was made, and that was on this last plan, but I would have made a motion on my colleague's plan had we known the process. And, this committee has been a little bit different in its process in regards to how we move forward. So from a parliamentary standpoint, Is this the only map that we can make a motion on, or could we have made a motion on some of the citizens' maps, or what's our process here?
You could have made a motion on any plan.
Oh, well, I don't know if I'm the only one that didn't. Maybe I am the only one that didn't know that, because I would assume that my colleague would have made a motion on his own plan if he'd have known that.
Representative Freeman.
I believe I did.
Oh, did okay? I didn't hear. I missed it. Okay, okay. And Mr. Chair, if you just
No, you didn't. Representative Parkinson.
Okay. Well, Mr. Chair, I don't want to make any assumptions, but I guess is it too late for us to make a motion on the other plans?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. That would have been. I think the committee would have been better served if we would have known we could have started making motions on some of these plans, because it probably would have got motions on some of the other plans that were presented also, that were within the guidelines of what the law says. Mr. Chair, if you will indulge me on some comments in regards to this plan. Questions?
You recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Hines, can you tell me what you stated that District 9 is a majority minority district. Can you tell me what those numbers are?
Mr. Hines.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, Representative Parkinson. So the 9th District has a population of 767,871. It's ideal. Its voting age white is 30.11%. Voting age African American is 58.32%. And voting age Hispanic is 7.67%.
Representative Parkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you for that, Mr. Hines. I just want to make a comment more than a question. And looking at this map, you know, when this map was unveiled, you could hear the air suck out of the room from everybody looking at it. I was just as shocked as myself. This is a vicious map. I mean, there was no stone unturned in this map to give a complete 100-year advantage to the majority party in this map. It would take a long, long time to recover from this map. You know, you look at the split of Davidson County, it's vicious. You look at the dilution of the minority citizens in Davidson County, it's vicious. And I hope that before before this map is voted on, that there is some consideration given to the citizens of Tennessee and to these individual counties that have been split, and to people, so that they can actually have the adequate representation. I'm actually shocked. You know, I knew that there would be some surprises. I didn't know it was going to be to this extent, though. That's a vicious, vicious map. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Leader Camper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to agree with my colleague on his last statement with respect to how vicious this map is, but I have a few questions I'd like to ask with respect to the 9th Congressional District. I think it's odd that we, instead of deciding to keep Shelby County whole, we drew in Tipton County, and the thought was that the sitting representative would have the rural counties represented with respect to cutoff. I do have a question about a little bit more detail about that District 9. You were given the demographics. Could you give those demographics again so that I can have a better understanding?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Of course, Leader Camper. So the 9th District, the total population is 767,871. It's the ideal population. Mm-hmm. The voting age white is 30.11%. The voting age African American is 58.32%, and the voting age Hispanic is 7.67%.
What was the
Leader
voting
Camper.
I'm sorry, thank you, Mr. Chairman. What was the voting age black again?
The voting age African American is 58.32%.
And that's the percentage of population voting age for African Americans in that district, is what you're saying, 58?
Yes, Leader Kemper. So that's the percentage of African Americans 18 and above. It's that whole number divided by the whole number of voters or of residents in that district that are 18 and above.
Okay.
Leader Camper.
How far to the east does this map go within Shelby County? It's difficult to see from here. I was expecting maybe we would see them individually, similarly how we did with the house maps when we did it, but if I could get a look at that. So, what is that easternmost portion there?
Ms. Times.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So, and tell me if you want me to get further into detail, but this appears to be Route 14. I'm sure it has a local name that's not on this computer. I believe, my sense is this is Bartlett's boundary. This would be the Cordova area of Memphis. Similar to what the current District 9th looks like in Shelby County, and then around to where Collierville would be, Germantown, and then into Memphis. Which again is similar to what it looks like now.
So the 8 congressional district goes in how far to the west in Shelby? Where is that?
Sure, I'll zoom in there. You'll know this area better than me.
What is that? So you said. I want him to say it on the record. Does it take in the University of Memphis? I can't.
Leader Camper, it's
hearing
no. University of
Poplar.
Memphis is right here.
Okay, so it's right there, it's University. Okay, so it's north of University of Memphis.
Right.
Poplar Corridor. Is that Highway 72?
This is, yeah, and this Oak Court Mall is here.
Mm-hmm. The finger of love the other direction. Okay. Okay. Is it possible to see, based on what the map looks like now, the current drawings of the district as it appear right now, an overlay of what it looks like here? Is it a way to compare those two where we can get a visual of that?
Ms. Times.
Yes.
Can you show that? Would you show that?
Of course. So the green line represents the current boundary between the 8th and the 9th.
Can you back out? Okay, that is the current map.
So the green line.
Mm-hmm.
I hope it shows up. Yeah, it does. So the green line is the current boundary. Mm-hmm. The peach color is the proposed 9th district, and the gray color is the proposed 8th district.
Can you go out a little bit more, or in whichever direction? Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Leader Camper.
Mr. Chairman, I think we should keep this map in this committee and have a deeper conversation about what we're looking at here. I'd like to move that we table that motion to move this map out of here. I'm asking that the committee take a deeper look. Maybe the committee could have a deeper conversation before we have time. We don't have to move it out to the next committee. We have time where we could talk. We can
So
have a
you're
discussion.
making a motion to table.
His motion. My motion to move it out.
Leader Lambert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would humbly and with all due respect to the maker of that motion, oppose that motion. We've been through this process for months and months and months. We've had lots of public input. We've had lots of opportunity for input, and we will continue to have more. This is the first committee in this process. It will go through at least 3 other committees before it comes to the House floor, where we will continue to have robust debate and consideration, and any amendments will be considered and any discussion will be considered. But to stonewall the process at this juncture, I think would be premature to cut off debate. So with all due respect, I would oppose that motion and ask that members vote in the negative on that particular motion.
We have a motion to table Speaker Pro Tem Marsh's motion. Did I hear a second? There's a second. So we are voting on the tabling motion.
Do I get to say something? I get to.
Well, you've already made the motion.
But I get to talk for a
All
minute.
right.
Yeah, thank you.
You recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I understand your point, Mr. Leader, but I mean, in the legislative process and the committee process, it's not unusual to hold a bill or hold a map or hold an issue in a committee and continue a conversation and continue to work with one another to continue to decide if we want to amend the bill or in this case, map. So that's not unusual for us to do in any of our committees. So I think there's plenty enough time. The session just began. We could hold it here for another week or at the call of the chair and maybe just have a deeper conversation. This is the first time we've seen the map. I understand you're saying there's been conversation about it with whom, I don't know. No one in the Democratic leadership have seen or talked or had a conversation about this map until this very moment. So I would ask that you withdraw your motion to ask us not to support my motion and that we go ahead and table it for now and just continue the conversation. We have time.
We are on Leader Camper's motion to table Speaker Pro Tem Marsh's motion. All in favor of the tabling motion signify by saying aye. Opposed? Aye. Motion fails. We have a Leader Camper.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we roll this to the next committee hearing, that we give us time to really think about what we're doing here.
That's not a proper motion. We have a motion and a second on the floor. Representative Wendell.
Mr. Chairman, I'd be out of order, but on a positive note, would you please make welcome Isabella Baldwin, who is an intern from Harpeth Hall. She's on the front row, and we appreciate her being here today. And I know I'm out of order, but it's an important day for her, and I anticipate within the next, maybe not a few months, within the next year, she will be a student either at our Naval Academy or at MIT or Caltech, and her dad, is a friend of mine, Russ Baldwin, and many of you know him, but it might be inappropriate for me to call out this time, but I don't think it is. The future is more important than the past. So, Isabella, welcome, and Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Representative Parkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and Mr. Chairman. Are we in discussion on Speaker Marsh's motion?
Yes.
Okay. You mind?
Representative
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And while I understand that we want to dispose of this redistricting issue so that people can start looking at the maps and preparing for re-election and these other things, but this map has been kept under lock and key from the majority, well, from some of us. I'm not sure how many members on this committee has seen the map before now, but I can tell you I hadn't seen it before now. I don't want to speak for my colleagues apparently hadn't seen it before now. And I would be interested to know how many members has seen the map before now. And if that's the case, then our process is not as transparent as we are professing it to be. We wanted to pause this process for just a week so that we can dive into the map, but I'm sure that some of the members of this committee have had an opportunity to really, really dig in and get in and peel the layers back of this proposed map to ensure that it does what specifically they wanted to do. And so, without going back on the previous motion, and I'm not, Mr. Chair, I'm trying to stay within your rules, but I just see it as inherently unjust for those of us that had not had a chance to look at this map and then be asked to move this map to the next committee and be told, well, you're going to have, a few committees for it to go through, and you do it there when everybody else has had however many weeks it's been or a week or so to view and study and pick apart and look at the numbers on this map. This is going to affect my children and their children based on what's being presented here. And this is not something that we should rush. We do have time to discuss this a little bit further and allow the public to discuss it a little bit further without, running out of time to do that. So, Speaker Marsh, while I consider you a good friend and a good guy, I just think we are really, really rushing a very important process in rushing this map out. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Holtzclaw.
Call for question, Speaker.
Question's been called. Is there objection? We have objection. We're voting on the question. All in favor of the question signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? We're voting on Speaker Pro Tem Marsh's motion. All in favor of the committee plan signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Passes. Mr. Himes, when will a map be available on our website?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Hopefully in the very near future, a map, a picture of this map, just as you see it, will be available on the House Select Committee's webpage under plans and under the congressional bill number, which is, I have to remember what the number is. So it will be listed under House Bill 1034. And hopefully by the end of the day, there will also be a map book of the individual nine districts with the demographic information of each district also on the webpage. But both the overall plan should be up very shortly. The map book should be up hopefully by the end of the day.
All right, thank you. I'd like to thank the public for showing up today and the attendance of all our members. And I even see some Senate members in the audience. So thank you for attending, and if there's no further business, We're adjourned.